Reawakening. Welcome again to Reawakening, the Dream Interpretation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mann. As we all know too well in today's dangerous and unstable world, bombs are weapons of destruction that can release sudden and violent energy. But do they always have this negative connotation in our dreams? Our resident dream interpreter, Yvonne Ryba, says not necessarily so. And in fact, bombs can represent our potential to explode our energy in creative and constructive ways. Join us as Yvonne shares a recent dream she had that illustrates this intriguing duality of meaning. Greetings again, Yvonne. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Chris.
Oh, so good to hear. Well, Yvonne, what do you have for us this month from the Dream Vault?
Okay. Well, I had a dream from last week, believe it or not, May the 19th. And today's what, the 24th of?
Yes, today is the 24th.
24th of May. So I was looking through my book that I'd written in, and I thought, well, I'll do this. And then I looked again, and I thought, my goodness, because something has happened since I had this dream that it ties in with it. So there are two things about this dream that I'm going to tell you. One is it has some prophetic trend strain to it, okay? Something that happened. And then two, it deals also with a personal matter for me. But the two are tied together as dreams do with symbols. And, you know, the subconscious is wonderful at being able to pick out the right symbols and make it seem very complicated to us. But once we get the message, it's easy. So here's the dream. There were three of us, and we were talking, when a man came up to us, and he gave us a suitcase each filled with money and a square clock-looking package, which was a bomb, okay? Looked like a clock, but like dynamite or whatever, I don't know, but attached to it.
Oh, wow.
And he told us that we had to put them at railway stations.
Oh, my gosh.
I hadn't done, I just left my case there. I mean, I hadn't done anything. But the next morning, and I'm still in bed, right, I was called by one of the other women who said it was all over the news about the explosions. I said, well, I hadn't heard the news yet. I was still in bed. And then I looked out of the bedroom window, which was on the ground floor, the first floor, whatever. It was a huge window, by the way. It was like a shop window. It was like when you're looking in a store with mannequins and things. It was one of those big plate glass windows.
Oh.
But it was a one-way only. I could see very clearly through it, but it was tinted so that nobody could see in.
Yeah.
And this man who had given us the suitcases was standing trying to see through the window. Probably wanted to know why I hadn't set my bomb off, I suppose. Anyway, I got up to talk to him. I was looking for my dressing gown, and I couldn't find it. And everything was like in boxes around me, and not untidy, but just not organized yet. It looked like I'd just moved. That's what it was. We just moved into this new place, and we hadn't unpacked everything. And then children, who turned out to be my family, ran in, and I had to deal with them. They wanted various things, probably breakfast and so on, but I had to deal with them. And then by the time I got to the door, the man had disappeared. But I looked out of the door, and I saw a group of men talking further up the street. Now, I realized that I just moved into this place, and that I was sort of thinking about what to do with all this stuff that I'd been given. And I thought, I'm going to keep the money. But I don't need the bomb. I'm not going to blow anybody up.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, what happened to all my dressing gowns? Where did they all go?
Uh-huh.
And that was the end of the dream.
Okay, so, I mean, gosh.
Yes.
If I had a dream like that, or, some of my pants were missing or whatever, I would wake up and be so riveted on the prophetic thing. Well, the actual Manchester bombings occurred a couple, 3 days after this dream that you had, right?
Yes. And here's the interesting thing, which I think I've mentioned to you before, but we'll do it again. When I lived in England and I was a high school teacher, I taught in Manchester. So I have a personal thing about Manchester.
Okay.
And I used that railway station. By the way, that great big arena was not there then, obviously, but it's attached to the railway station, so that people don't have to park. They can get the train in, walk straight into the arena, and the same thing on the way out. And I used to go up to see my parents with that train from there. And then my daughter was conceived in Manchester.
Oh,
Although
wow.
I moved before she was born, I moved back up further north to where my parents were. So Manchester has a lot of meaning for me. And when I was looking at this dream later, and I thought, whoa, there's bombs in Manchester, and I've got bombs in this dream, and my family run in, okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's part of Manchester as well, even though she never lived there. She was just conceived there. So it's an interesting setup that I've got some kind of little prophetic message in this dream, as well as a personal message.
I think a lot of people would just be so, oh my gosh, I just predicted this thing. That would be their energy around that days later, that they might not stop and think, was there a personal message, perhaps independent of that prophetic dream, that you need to stop and look at? So that's kind of what you're saying here. You identified with it on two levels.
Yes, and there is a belief system, and I believe it, but whatever the way this thing works, is that when there is some great event that is going to be worldwide, okay, and plane crashes, volcanoes erupting, all that kind of thing, earthquakes and so on, they become, you know, international news.
Yeah.
And so is this bombing, all right? So, and having a personal connection with the place as well, I sort of picked up on this, whatever this vibration was that's coming along here. Because this had been planned for quite a while. It was going to happen. There was no way out of it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was a young guy, fit and so on, unless he got run over, he was going to be doing this. And that's what happened. But I didn't get that when I had the dream because this hadn't happened.
Right.
And I didn't think of Manchester. You know, I just thought of, well, what's this thing with the bombs? Okay, now bombs are vast amounts of energy that are released.
Yeah.
They're compressed, and then they are released. And they usually, it's a good thing, as a matter of fact.
Oh, yeah.
In the dream, for me,
In the dream.
the personal message, yes, is I'm handed a suitcase. It's got potential great energy being released and a lot of money, all right? So two kind of connected together,
Right.
and I'm going to keep the money, all right? But the main thing was that if the potential is the interesting thing, I have got to be the one who explodes this bomb. I've got to be the one who gets going and uses the energy.
Right.
One of, you know, it's a really interesting concept, and it can be an emotional suppression, which is also something that I may be dealing with.
Yes.
Suppressing certain things, you know, that we all do. We all suppress memories that are painful and
Sure.
things
Anger.
that we're having to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, and I've had 2 husbands die on me in 13 years.
Yes,
so
you have.
I do have some suppression of some stuff.
Yeah.
The railway station is a temporary place where we go to move, all right? And there's a lot of moving in this dream. I'm moved. I didn't realize it till I wake up in this place, but I have moved to a new place. And a place where I can look out of this enormous window and see far and wide. And nobody can see in. I mean, it's private. For me, I can see everything, but nobody can see me. And that kind of a window, well, all windows are the ability to see beyond, okay?
Right.
And here we are. This is an expanded vision for me, but windows can also be symbols of interdimensional awareness. So let's put that down. What the heck is that about? Well, interdimensional, the next dimension. When we're asleep, we're in a different dimension, really. It's another place where we live and do things, and then we wake up and think it doesn't matter. But when we're in the dream, it's very real.
Very real.
And then there are the other dimensions that we will be going to, the ones after life.
Right.
And so on. There are many levels here, but not just the one. So I am being given a look at what's going on outside. I've been given the suitcase, another symbol of moving, which says there's great potential here, and it can give you rich rewards, but you're going to have to do something with it.
So in life, bombs are essentially destructive. They're used for that purpose.
Yes.
In a dream, you had a choice here to do something destructive with the bomb, or to perhaps harness that energy for yourself and explode in a sort of either constructive or creative way with your inner world, so to speak.
Yes. And, you know, you may have a dream where you do explode a bomb, and it destroys a lot of things, and you wake up and you feel terrible about what the heck was that about. But look at what it is you've destroyed. It may be your subconscious is saying, listen, we've got to get out here and clear the deck. We've got to get rid of all this negative stuff you built around yourself.
Right.
And use all this wonderful energy to get things going.
Yeah.
That may also be a dream where it's saying, be careful what you're doing. You might be destroying something.
Right.
It might be, but your feeling will tell you which way it goes.
Okay.
Because even when it's frightening, there is usually a connection emotionally with if this is useful, if it's meaningful, and so on. Once you get to know your dreams and your inner being, you can interpret them.
Yeah.
And then you get, like I do, I knew that the bomb wasn't necessarily a bad thing for me. But it was definitely, something that I needed to use, I suppose. And then, of course, this prophetic thing, that just sort of was stuck on, was like the trailer, if you like, for what was to come. It was saying, by the way, we're using these symbols to let you know that you're going to hear about this.
Yeah. For you, the window, you could see out of it into what was happening outside. But you mentioned the interdimensional world. Will you, with your dream workshops, dream interpretation, and you're very intuitive, do you feel that window had a special significance for you about indicating what you need to do with those gifts?
Yes, I think I may have mentioned to you personally that I'm going to write a book. I've been so busy with everything else in my life that I haven't had a chance to get down to it.
Yeah, it's time.
In my church, I do a talk every month. I help there. It's a Science of Mind.
Yes.
I do a study group twice a month in my home, and I have a good group that comes, and we discuss the practice of Science of Mind, and so on. But I need to do more in that and get this book thing going because...
Get it going. Yeah,
I have been sidelined, if you like, by a lot of community work that I do, which I love doing, but I recognize, I'm limited to time and energy, and the suitcase says, we're not blowing up anything here. We're not getting out there and exploding this energy.
And I can tell you firsthand that a book is an explosion of creative energy.
Yes.
And I have at least another book inside of me that I know I'll have to pull that trigger on one day. But with the Three's Company book years ago, it was a great unleashing of creativity for me and expression. And my gosh, you have so much of that ready to get out of you and to share.
Well, I better hurry up and do it because I'm getting older and I...
Oh, you're going to be like Betty White, Yvonne.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, and that's part of this is, yes, and I promised myself that come June, when several of the organizations I'm in take a break, and I also change positions in one of them, and I've said I'm not taking an officer's part again for the next year or so because I need to focus on my own stuff, that I can focus on writing because, like, as you know, you can't just sit down for 10 minutes and write a bit and then rush around and go to a meeting and come back. And,
you can't.
You've got to focus and have some blocks of time to work on it. And,
yes.
And I haven't got that at the moment. I'm busy with all this other stuff. But that's coming. I'm going to work on that. I'm definitely making an effort.
Fantastic.
And my friends are supportive as well. And they're all saying, get on with it. And that's good to have people cracking the whip around you.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that you conceived your daughter in Manchester, and then it would turn out days after you had this dream that it was tragically this thing that happened in Manchester at this Ariana Grande concert auditorium near the railways is definitely prophetic in terms of you seeing something coming, but also when you put that connection in of your Manchester connection, and like you said, you conceived your daughter there, I think that this dream is pointing toward you conceiving, creating something new. In England, wasn't that when you really first got in touch with more of your spiritual side versus, say, organized religion, and you really started to pursue those gifts?
Yes. Well, when I was very young, I had many psychic experiences.
Yeah.
I saw things or people and so on that, nobody else could see and so on. And it was quite normal in our family because everybody had this psychic ability. And then as I got older, of course, you don't deal with it as much, you know. I became a teacher, went to college. I mean, I dealt with children
Sure.
a lot. And it's a strange thing, but just came to me that this terrible explosion there was aimed at children. I mean, these were young people, young teenagers, you know, even younger, what they call tweenies or something.
Yeah.
Little 8-year-old that was killed. I mean, it's a sort of dreadful thing, and all these children were in the dream too. So I was getting sort of little pieces of things which didn't mean anything to me, and they're not supposed to be a warning. They're just saying you are able to pick up on the vibration of what's happening in the future as it is now, because in another dimension the time is a totally different thing, and some dimensions, apparently, they don't even have a thing for time. I mean, it's like we can't even imagine that. How can we have things without time? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's beyond our comprehension.
Yes, it is, and that's another conversation altogether. But that's where we're going here, you see, with dreams. Dreams can tell you a lot of stuff in a very short, symbolically fueled dream.
Right.
And you just have to know, when you've done it so long, as I have, it gets easier. It does. But if you haven't done it at all, you don't understand them. You don't know what it's about. Which is why I do dream workshops, to help people with that.
And this podcast is a tool for beginners.
I hope so.
It is. And I look forward, as you get your book to completion, we'll talk more about that. And will the book contain stories about your dreams and the dream element of interdimensionality? Is that going to be an angle of the book? Well,
here's where my interdimensional awareness is coming in. A lot of it will be guided by my spiritual core. I'll be sort of given a feeling of go that way. But the plan is to choose certain parts of my life and then look at the talks that I've given over the years and do some research on other people's thoughts about these particular things. How to overcome grief, all right.
Yes.
And I've had a lot of that. But you can't let it stop you. I remember when I was a young woman teaching in a place called Sunderland in the north of England, a big port, shipbuilding place. I had a little teeny apartment, just 2 rooms, in a widow's house. And this widow used to invite me down for tea as soon as I got back from school. And I'd go down, have tea and cookies with her, and she'd talk about her late husband. And she said the same thing every day, how she missed him, he did everything, she didn't know what to do.
Sure.
And she went on and on. This woman was in a rut. And I'm older now than she was then. She seemed old to me then, but I recognize she's probably in her 60s. And I thought to myself, I must remember never to get like this.
Right.
Because this is a waste of life, to be sort of, all you can do is wait for me to come back to talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, instead of getting out there a bit and sort of trying to push forward in life. And that's one of the things that I need to put in the book. And it's going to be motivational, spiritual, and funny. I believe in some humor in everything.
Humor is a healer. It is.
Yeah. Laughter is a gift.
It is. It is that. And maybe this element of grief in the book, maybe that's what this dream is also telling you, to definitely include that by making these connections with this tragedy that happened in Manchester. This is a different time that we live in now. And we did 15, 20 years ago especially. And people need this message of moving forward.
They do.
And in understanding we'll see our loved ones again. But we got work to do still, if we're still here.
We do. That's so true.
Get on that book, Yvonne. It's going to be good.
Okay, Chris. You and me both.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. We'll inspire each other. Well, always enlightening, Yvonne, and I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch in the coming weeks.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I look forward to it, Chris.
Look forward to it always. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, dear. Bye-bye.
Reawakening with Chris Mann and Yvonne Ryba is a Rising Action Media production. Copyright 2017 by Chris Mann.